What if simple shapes, lines, circles, squares, could form a powerful language? A language that could describe wildly different things, from art to engineering. It sounds a little out there, I know, but that's the fascinating idea we're going to unpack today. I mean, seriously, think about it. Can a painting and a power grid really speak the same language? On one hand, you've got the emotional, subjective world of art, and on the other, the super complex, technical world of a massive system. What on earth could they possibly have in common? Well, the bridge between these two worlds is this really cool mental model. It's not about finding hidden triangles in a masterpiece or anything like that. It's about using the idea of geometry as something called a constraint language. So, what is a constraint language? Just think of it like this. It's a very simple set of words you use to describe the rules of a game. It doesn't try to explain why something is happening, but it's brilliant at describing the shape of what's happening. It shows you the boundaries of what's possible and what's not. Okay, so let's start with our first case study and dive into the world of art. How can a simple language of shapes actually help us talk about something as messy and complex as human emotion on a canvas? Now, before we go any further, the source paper by Suzanne Crippen makes a really important point. This is not some scientific formula where, this shape equals this emotion. It's an interpretive tool. It's just a way to have a more disciplined, clearer conversation about arts. And the process is actually pretty straightforward. First, you just look at the art and notice the patterns. Then you use a small set of geometric ideas to give those patterns a name. And that simple act, that labeling, lets you talk about the feeling of the piece with so much more precision. So, what's in this vocabulary? Well, the first primitive is linearity. This is basically anything in the piece that creates a strong sense of direction, something that pulls your eye across the canvas. It can feel like a powerful force or a sense of urgency, or even something really rigid and stuck. Next up, we have enclosure. This is all about how much the things in a painting feel boxed in or contained. A composition with a lot of enclosure might feel really tense, like there's a ton of pressure, but it could also feel safe and intimate. See the nuance? And the flip side of that is expansion, where all the visual energy seems to be radiating outwards from the center. And again, this can go two ways. It could feel like a joyful, freeing release, or it could feel like total chaos, just completely overwhelming. And finally, we've got a pair that works together: repetition and disruption. Repetition is pretty obvious. It's any element that shows up over and over again, creating a rhythm. And disruption? That's the moment that rhythm gets broken. It's how you create a pattern and then introduce tension. Now, these ideas are pretty cool on their own, but the real magic, the really expressive stuff, happens when they start to combine and interact with each other. That's when you get what are called composite forms. For example, when you mix repetition with a sudden disruption, you get this feeling of instability or interruption. Think of a steady beat that all of a sudden just stutters. Or what if you combine a strong directional linearity with a tight enclosure? Well, that creates this powerful sense of restrained force, like something is just about to burst. It becomes a language for tension. So we've got a language for talking about art. Pretty cool. Okay, now take a deep breath, because we're about to make a huge jump from the quiet art gallery to the engineer's office, from paintings to power grids. And here is the connection. What if this same exact idea, using a deliberately simple vocabulary to see the deep patterns underneath, could be used as a diagnostic tool? Could it help us figure out why a big project is failing, or why an entire organization just feels stuck? This is where we start talking about the shape of a system. And here, the geometric primitives aren't just for interpretation anymore. Now they're tools for diagnosis, for understanding the structural health of pretty much any complex organization. In this framework, the primitives are different, and their meanings are totally fixed and symbolic. A triangle always represents initiation, a focused goal. A circle is all about connection and feedback loops. The square represents containment, the rules, the boundaries. And the spiral? That's for transformation and adapting to change. So here's the core principle. A healthy, resilient system needs a balance of all four of these things. The moment one of them starts to dominate, or one is missing entirely, the whole system develops these really predictable problems, these failure modes. For instance, let's imagine a system with way too much square, way too much containment. This is that company that's just buried in red tape and procedures, but has no clear direction. It feels stable, sure, but it's brittle. It can't adapt to anything, and so it just slowly becomes irrelevant. Or how about a system that's all circle? This is the team that's amazing at communicating. I mean, there are endless meetings, constant feedback, but without the triangle's direction or the square's boundaries, nothing ever gets done. It's total consensus paralysis. Sound familiar? And here's another really common one, a system with tons of triangles and circles, new ideas popping up constantly, everyone's always talking, but there's no square to hold it all together. This leads straight to burnout. Everyone's busy, new projects are always starting, but nothing is sustainable, and nobody knows who's accountable for what. Okay, so we've seen this one big idea applied in two totally different fields. Let's bring it all together and ask the big question. Why does such a simple language actually work so well? Well, the power is in the constraint itself. This really sums it up perfectly. With art, the goal is interpretation, so the language is descriptive. The shape's meanings can change depending on how they relate to each other. But with systems, the goal is diagnosis, so the language is symbolic and fixed. A square always means containment. The goals are different, but the core idea is exactly the same. And this, right here, is the most important takeaway of all. The specific shapes, they don't really matter. You could use animals or colors or whatever. The real power comes from having a limited shared vocabulary. By forcing us to use fewer words, it actually forces us to be more precise, and it helps us see the fundamental patterns we would have otherwise missed. So, I'll leave you with this to chew on. Whether it's in our relationships, our work, or in society as a whole, what other huge, messy, complex problems could suddenly become a lot clearer if we could just find the right, simple language to talk about them? Thanks for tuning in.